Hello, and welcome back to Baby Alice's stories. We now return to Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett, Part 16. Corporal Carrot awoke around 4 a.m., that secret hour known only to the night people, such as criminals, policemen, and other misfits. He lay on his half of the narrow bed and stared at the wall. It had definitely been an interesting night. Although he was indeed simple, he wasn't stupid, and he'd always been aware of what might be called the mechanics. He'd been acquainted with several young ladies, and had taken them on many invigorating walks to see fascinating ironwork and interesting civic buildings until they'd unaccountably lost interest. He'd patrolled the whore pits often enough, although Mrs. Palm and the Guild of Seamstresses were trying to persuade the patrician to rename the area the Street of Negotiable Affection. But he'd never seen them in relation to himself, had never been quite sure, as it were, where he fitted in. This was probably not something he was going to write to his parents about. They almost certainly knew. He slid out of bed. The room was stifling hot, with the curtains drawn. Behind him, he heard Angua roll over into the hollow left by his body. Then, with both hands and considerable vigor, he threw open the curtains and let in the round, white light of the full moon. Behind him, he thought he heard Angua sigh in her sleep. There were thunderstorms out on the plain. Carrot could see lightning flashes stitching the horizon, and he could smell rain. But the air of the city was still and baking, all the hotter for the distant prospect of storms. The university's tower of art loomed in front of him. He saw it every day. It dominated half the city. Behind him, the bed went clink. "I think there's going to be," he began, and turned. As he turned away, he missed the glint of moonlight on metal from the top of the tower. Sergeant Cullen sat on the bench outside the baking air of the watchhouse. There was a hammering noise from somewhere inside. Cuddy had come in 10 minutes before with a bag of tools, a couple of helmets, and a determined expression. Cullen was damned if he knew what the little devil was working on. He counted again, very slowly, ticking off names on his clipboard. No doubt about it. The night watch had almost 20 members now. Maybe more. Detritus had gone critical and had sworn in a further 2 men, another troll and a wooden dummy from outside Corksock's Natty Clothing Co. If this went on, they'd be able to open up the old watch houses near the main gates, just like the old days. He couldn't remember when the watch last had 20 men. He couldn't remember when the watch last had 20 men. It had all seemed a good idea at the time. It was certainly keeping the lid on things. But in the morning, the patrician was going to get to hear about it and demand to see the superior officer. Now, Sergeant Cullen was not entirely clear in his own mind who was the superior officer at the moment. He felt that it should be either Captain Vimes or, in some way he couldn't quite define, Corporal Carrot. But the captain wasn't around, and Corporal Carrot was only a corporal. And Fred Cullen had a dreadful apprehension that when Lord Veterinary summoned someone in order to be ironical at them and say things like, "Who's going to pay their wages, pray?" it would be him, Fred Cullen, well and truly up the Ankh without a paddle. They were also running out of ranks. There were only 4 ranks below the rank of sergeant. Nobby was getting stroppy about anyone else being promoted to corporal, so there was a certain amount of career congestion taking place. Besides, some of the watch had got it into their heads that the way you got promoted was to conscript half a dozen other guards. At Detritus's current rate of progress, he was going to be High Supreme Major General by the end of the month. And what made it all strange was that Carrot was still only a... Cullen looked up when he heard the tinkle of broken glass. Something golden and indistinct crashed through an upper window, landed in the shadows, and fled before he could make out what it was. The watch-house door slammed open, and Carrot emerged, sword in hand. "Where did it go? Where'd it go?" "Dunno. What the hell was it?" Carrot stopped. Not sure," he said. "Carrot? Sarge? I should put some clothes on if I was you, lad." Carrot stayed looking into the pre-dawn gloom. I turned around and there it was, and... He looked down at the sword in his hand as if he hadn't realized that he was carrying it. "Oh, damn," he said. He ran back to his room and grabbed his breeches. As he struggled into them, he was suddenly aware of a thought in his head, clear as ice. "You are a pillock! What are you? Picked up the sword automatically, didn't you? Did it all wrong. Now she's run off and you'll never see her again." He turned. A small grey dog was watching him intently from the doorway. "Shocked like that, she might never change back again," said his thoughts. "Who cares if she's a werewolf? That didn't bother you until you knew. Incidentally, any biscuits about your person could be usefully thrown to the small dog in the doorway. Although, come to think of it, the chances of having a biscuit on you right now are very small, so forget you ever thought it. Blimey, you really messed that up, right?" thought Carrot. "Woof, woof," said the dog. Carrot's forehead wrinkled. "It's you, isn't it?" he said, pointing his sword. "Me? Dogs don't talk," said Gaspard hurriedly. "Listen, I should know. I am one." "You tell me where she's gone, right now, or..." "Yeah? Look," said Gaspard gloomily. "The first thing I remember in my life, right? The first thing was being thrown into the river in a sack with a brick. Me. I had wobbly legs and a humorously inside-out ear. I was fluffy. Okay, right, so it was the Ankh. Okay, so I could walk ashore, but that was the start, and it ain't never got much better. I walked ashore inside the sack, dragging the brick. It took me 3 days to chew my way out. Go on, threaten me." "Please," said Carrot. Gaspard scratched his ear. "Maybe I could track her down," said Gaspard. "Given the right, encouragement." He waggled his eyebrows encouragingly. "If you find her, I'll give you anything you want," said Carrot. "Oh, well, if... Right. Oh, yes. That's all very well, if. What about something up front? Look at these paws, hey? Wear and tear. And this nose doesn't smell by itself. It's a finely tuned instrument. If you don't start looking right away, said Carrot, I will personally. He hesitated. He'd never been cruel to an animal in his life. I'll turn the matter over to Corporal Nobbs, he said. That's what I like, said Gaspard bitterly. Incentive. He pressed his blotchy nose to the ground. It was all show, anyway. Angua's scent hung in the air like a rainbow. You can really talk, said Carrot. Gaspard rolled his eyes. Course not, he said. The figure had reached the top of the tower. Lamps and candles were alight all over the city. It was spread out below him. 10,000 little earth-bound stars. And he could turn off any one he wanted. Just like that. It was like being a god. It was amazing how sounds were so audible up here. It was like being a god. He could hear the howl of dogs, the sound of voices. Occasionally, one would be louder than the rest, rising up into the night sky. This was power. The power he had below. The power to say, do this, do that. That was just something human. But this was like being a god. He pulled the gun into position, clicked the rack of 6 bullets into position, and sighted at random on a light, and then on another one and another one. He really shouldn't have let it shoot that beggar girl. That wasn't the plan. Guild leaders. That was poor little Edward's plan. Guild leaders to start with. Leave the city leaderless and in turmoil. And then confront his silly candidate and say, go forth and rule. It is your destiny. That was an old disease. That kind of thinking. You caught it from crowns and silly stories. You believed. Ha! You believed that some trick like pulling a sword from a stone was somehow a qualification for kingly office. A sword from a stone. The gun was more magical than that. He lay down, stroked the gun, and waited. Day broke. I never touched nothing, said Coalface, and turned over his slab. Detritus hit him over the head with his club. Thonk! Up you get, soldiers! Hand off rock and on with shock. It another beautiful day in a watch. Lance-constable Coalface, on your feet, you horrible little man! 20 minutes later, a bleary-eyed Sergeant Collins surveyed the troops. They were slumped on the benches, except for Acting Constable Detritus, who was sitting bolt upright with an air of official helpfulness. Right, men, Colin began. Now as you men, you listen up good right now, Detritus boomed. Thank you, Acting Constable Detritus, said Colin wearily. Captain Vimes is getting married today. We're going to provide a guard honour. That's what we always used to do in the old days when a watchman got wed. So I want helmets and breastplates bright and shiny, and cohorts gleaming, not a speck of muck. Where's Corporal Nobbs? There was a dink as Acting Constable Detritus's hand bounced off his new helmet. Hasn't been seen for hours, sir, he reported. Colin rolled his eyes. And some of you will? Where's Lance-constable Angua? Dink, No one's seen her since last night, sir. All right. We got through the night. We're going to get through the day. Corporal Carrot says we're to look sharp. Dink? Yes, sir. Acting Constable Detritus? Sir. What's that you got on your head? Dink? Acting Constable Cuddy made it for me, sir. Special clockwork thinking helmet. Cuddy coughed. These big bits are cooling fins, see? Painted black. I glued a clockwork engine off my cousin, and this fan here blows air over. He stopped when he saw Cullen's expression. That's what you've been working on all night, is it? Yes, because I reckon troll brains get to. The sergeant waved him into silence. So we've got a clockwork soldier, have we? Said Cullen. We're a real mortal army, we are. Gaspard was geographically embarrassed. He knew where he was, more or less. He was somewhere beyond the shades, in the network of dock basins and cattle yards. Even though he thought of the whole city as belonging to him, this wasn't his territory. There were rats here almost as big as he was, and he was basically a sort of terrier shape, and Ankh-Morpork rats were intelligent enough to recognize it. He'd also been kicked by 2 horses and almost run over by a cart, and he'd lost the scent. She doubled back and forth and used rooftops and crossed the river a few times. Werewolves were instinctively good at avoiding pursuit. After all, the surviving ones were descendants of those who could outrun an angry mob. Those who couldn't outwit a mob never had descendants, or even graves. Several times the scent petered out at a wall or a low-roofed hut, and Gaspard would limp around in circles until he found it again. Random thoughts wavered in his schizophrenic, doggy mind. Clever dog saves the day, he muttered. Everyone says, good doggy. No, they don't. I'm only doing it 'cause I was threatened. The marvelous nose. I don't want to do this. You shall have a bone. I'm just flotsam on the sea of life. Me. Who's a good boy? Shut up. The sun toiled up the sky. Down below, Gaspard toiled on. Willikins opened the curtains. Sunlight poured in. Vimes groaned and sat up slowly in what remained of his bed. Good grief, man, he mumbled. What sort of time do you call this? Almost 9 in the morning, sir, said the butler. 9 in the morning? What sort of time is that to get up? I don't normally get up until the afternoon's got the shine worn off. But, sir, is not at work any more, sir. Vimes looked down at the tangle of sheets and blankets. They were wrapped around his legs and knotted together. Then he remembered the dream. He'd been walking around the city. Well, maybe not so much a dream as a memory. After all, he walked the city every night. Some part of him wasn't giving up. Some part of Vimes was learning to be a civilian. But an old part was proceeding to a different beat. He thought the place seemed deserted and harder to walk through than usual. Does sir wish me to shave him, or will sir do it himself? I get nervous if people hold blades near my face, said Vimes. But if you harness the horse and cart, I'll try and get to the other end of the bathroom. Very amusing, sir. Vimes had another bath, just for the novelty of it. He was aware from a general background noise that the mansion was busily humming towards W hour. Lady Sybil was devoting to her wedding all the directness of thought she'd normally apply to breeding out a tendency towards floppy ears and swamp dragons. Half a dozen cooks had been busy in the kitchens for 3 days. They were roasting a whole ox and doing amazing stuff with rare fruit. Hitherto, Sam Vines's idea of a good meal was liver without tubes. Halt cuisine had been bits of cheese on sticks stuck into half a grapefruit. He was vaguely aware that prospective grooms were not supposed to see putative brides. Putative, generally considered or reputed to be. Putative, supposed. He was vaguely aware that prospective grooms were not supposed to see putative brides on the morning of the wedding, possibly in case they took to their heels. This was unfortunate. He'd have liked to have talked to someone. If he could talk to someone, it might all make sense. He picked up the razor and looked in the mirror at the face of Captain Samuel Vimes. Colin saluted and then peered at Carrot.
"You all right, sir? You look like you could do with some sleep."
10 o'clock, or various attempts therefore, began to boom around the city. Carrot turned away from the window.
"I've been out looking," he said. "3 more recruits this morning already," said Colin. "They'd asked to join Mr. Carrot's army."
He was slightly worried about that.
"Good. Detritus is giving him very basic training," said Colin. "It works too. After an hour of him shouting in their ear, they do anything I tell them."
"I want all the men we can spare up on the rooftops between the palace and the university," said Carrot.
"There's assassins up there already," said Colin. "And the Thieves Guild have got men up there too."
"They are thieves and assassins. We're not. Make sure someone's up on the Tower of Art as well."
"Sir?"
"Yes, Sergeant."
"We've been talking, me and the lads, and, well,
yes,
it'd save a lot of trouble if we went to the wizards and asked them."
"Captain Vimes never had any truck with magic."
"No, but..."
"No magic, Sergeant."
"Yes, sir."
"Guard of honor all sorted out?"
"Yes, sir. Their cohorts all gleaming in purple and gold, sir."
"Really?"
"Very important, sir. Good, clean cohorts. Frighten the life out the enemy."
"Good.
But I can't find Corporal Nobbs, sir."
"Is that a problem?"
"Well, it means the honor guard'll be a bit smarter, sir."
"I've sent him on a special errand."
Can't find Lance-constable Angua either."
"Sergeant." Colin braced himself. Outside, the bells were dying away. "Did you know she was a werewolf?"
Captain Vimes kind of hinted, sir."
"How did he hint?" Colin took a step back.
"Well, he sort of said, 'Fred, she's a damn werewolf. I don't like it any more than you do, but veterinary says we've got to take one of them as well. And a werewolf's better than a vampire or a zombie. And that's all there is to it.' That's what he hinted."
"I see."
Sorry about that, sir. Just let's get through the day, Fred. That's all.
A bing, a bing, a bing bong. We never even presented the captain with his watch, said Carrot, taking it out of his pocket. He must have gone off thinking we didn't care. He was probably looking forward to getting a watch. I know it always used to be a tradition.
It's been a busy few days, sir. Anyway, we can give it to him after the wedding.
Carrot slipped the watch back into its bag.
I suppose so. Well, let's get organized, Sergeant.
Corporal Nobbs toiled through the darkness under the city. His eyes had got accustomed to the gloom now. He was dying for a smoke, but Carrot had warned him about that. Just take the sack, follow the trail, bring back the body, and don't nick any jewelry. People were already filling into the great hall of Unseen University. Vimes had been firm about this. It was the only thing he'd held out for. He wasn't exactly an atheist, because atheism was a non-survival trait on a world with several thousand gods. He just didn't like any of them very much, and didn't see what business it was of theirs that he was getting married. He'd turn down any of the temples and churches, but the great hall had a sufficiently churchy look, which is what people always feel is mandatory on these occasions. It's not actually essential for any gods to drop in, but they should feel at home if they do. Vimes strolled down there early, because there's nothing more useless in the world than a groom just before the wedding. Interchangeable Emmas had taken over the house. There were already a couple of ushers in place, ready to ask guests whose side they were on. And there were a number of senior wizards hanging around. They were automatically guests at such a society wedding, and certainly at the reception afterwards. But one roast ox wouldn't be enough. Despite his deep distrust of magic, he quite liked the wizards. They didn't cause trouble. At least, they didn't cause his kind of trouble. True, occasionally they fractured the time-space continuum or took the canoe of reality too close to the white waters of chaos. But they never broke the actual law.
Good morning, Arch-Chancellor, he said.
Arch-Chancellor Mustrum Ridcully, supreme leader of all the wizards and Ankh-Morpork whenever they could be bothered, gave him a cheery nod. Good morning, Captain, he said. I must say, you've got a nice day for it.
A nice day for it, leered the Burzar.
Oh dear, said Ridically. He's off again. Can't understand the man. Anyone got the dried frog pills? It was a complete mystery to the Mustrum Ridcully, a man designed by nature to live outdoors and happily slaughter anything that coughed in the bushes, while the Burzar, a man designed by nature to sit in a small room somewhere adding up figures, was so nervous. He tried all sorts of things to, as he put it, buck him up. These included practical jokes, surprise early morning runs, and leaped out at him from behind doors while wearing Willy the Vampire masks in order, he said, to take him out of himself. The service itself was going to be performed by the Dean, who had carefully made one up. There was no official civil marriage service in Ankh-Morpork, other than something approximating to, "Oh, all right then, if you really must." He nodded enthusiastically at Vimes. "We've cleaned our organ especially for the occasion," he said.
Organ,
said the burzar.
and a mighty one it is, as organs go.
Ridcully stopped and signaled to a couple of student wizards. "Just take the burzar away and make him lie down for a while, will you?" he said. "I think someone's been feeding him meat again." There was a hiss from the far end of the great hall, and then a strangled squeak. "Squeak!" Vimes stared at the monstrous array of pipes. "Got 8 students pumping the bellows," said Ridcully to a background of wheezes. "It's got 3 keyboards and 100 extra knobs, including 12 with question marks on them."
Sounds impossible for a man to play,
said Vimes politely. "Ah, we had a stroke of luck there." There was a moment of sound so loud that the aural nerves shut down. When they opened again, somewhere around the pane threshold, they could just make out the opening and extremely bent bars of Fondel's Wedding March, being played with gusto by someone who discovered that the instrument didn't just have 3 keyboards, but a whole range of special acoustic effects, ranging from flatulence to humorous chicken squawk. The occasional ook of appreciation could be heard amidst the sonic explosion. Somewhere under the table, Vimes screamed at Ridcully.
"Amazing! Who built it?"
"I don't know, but it's got the name B.S. Johnson on the keyboard cover." There was a descending wail, one last hurdy-gurdy effect, and then silence. 20 minutes those lads were pumping up the reservoirs, said Ridcully, dusting himself off as he stood up. "Go easy on the Vox Day stop. That's a good chap." "Ook!" The Arch-Chancellor turned back to Vimes, who was wearing the standard waxen pre-nuptial grimace. The hall was filling up quite well now. "I'm not an expert on this stuff," he said, "but you've got the ring, have you?"
"Yes."
"Who's giving away the bride?"
"Her Uncle Lofthouse. He's a bit gaga, but she insisted."
"And the best man?"
"What?"
"The best man. You know, he hands you the ring and has to marry the bride if you run away and so on. The Dean's been reading up on it. Haven't you, Dean?" "Oh, yes," said the Dean, who'd spent all the previous day with Lady Deirdre Wagon's Book of Etiquette. "She's got to marry someone once she's turned up. You can't have unmarried brides flapping around the place, being a danger to society."
"I completely forgot about a best man," said Vimes.
The librarian, who'd given up on the organ until it had some more puff, brightened up. "Ook? Well, go and find one," said Ridcully. "You've got nearly half an hour."
"It's not as easy as that, is it? They don't grow on trees. Ook? I can't think who to ask. Ook?"
The librarian liked being best man. You were allowed to kiss bridesmaids, and they weren't allowed to run away. He was really disappointed when Vimes ignored him. Acting Constable Cuddy climbed laboriously up the steps inside the Tower of Art, grumbling to himself. He knew he couldn't complain. They'd drawn lots because Carrot said, "You shouldn't ask the men to do anything you wouldn't do yourself." And he'd drawn the short straw. Ha ha, which meant the tallest building. That meant if there was any trouble, he'd miss it. He paid no attention to the thin rope dangling from the trap door far above, even if he'd thought about it. So what? It was just a rope. Gaspard looked up into the shadows. There was a growl from somewhere in the darkness. It was no ordinary dog growl. Early man had heard sounds like that in deep caves. Gaspard sat down. His tail thumped uncertainly. "I knew I'd find you sooner or later," he said. "The old nose, eh? Finest instrument known to dog." There was another growl. Gaspard whimpered a bit. "The thing is," he said, "the actual thing is, see? The thing what I've been sent to do." Late man heard sounds like that too, just before he became late. "I can see you. Don't want to talk right now," said Gaspard. "But the thing is, now, I know what you're thinking. Is this Gaspard obeying orders from a human?" Gaspard looked conspiratorially over his shoulder, as if there could be anything worse than what was in front of him. "That's the whole mess about being a dog, see?" he said. "That's the thing what Big Fido can't get his mind around, see? You looked at the dogs in the guild, right? You heard 'em howl. Oh, yes, death to the humans, all right. But under all that, there's the fear. There's the voice saying, 'Bad dog.' And it don't come from anywhere but inside, right from inside the bones. 'Cause humans made dogs. I know this. I wish I didn't. But there it is. That's the power. Knowing. I've read books. I have. Well, chewed books." The darkness was silent. "And you're a wolf and a human at the same time, right? Tricky, that." "I can see that. Bit of a dichotomy sort of thing."
Dichotomy.
Dichotomy, a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. Dichotomy, division. Bit of a dichotomy sort of thing. Makes you kind of like a dog. 'Cause that's what a dog is, really. Half a wolf and half a human. You were right about that. We've even got names. Ha! So our bodies tell us one thing, our heads tell us another. It's a dog's life being a dog, and I bet you can't run away from him. Not really. He's your master. The darkness was more silent. Gaspard thought he heard movement. "He wants you to come back. The thing is, if he finds you, that's it. He'll speak and you'll have to obey. But if you goes back on your own accord, then it's your decision. You'd be happier as a human. I mean, what can I offer you except rats and a choice of fleas? I mean, I don't know. I don't see it as much of a problem. You just have to stay indoors 6 or 7 nights every month." Angua howled. The hairs that still remained on Gaspard's back stood on end. He tried to remember which was his jugular vein. "I don't want to have to come in there and get you," he said. Truth rang on every word. The actual thing is, I will though," he added, trembling. "It's a bugger being a dog." He thought some more and sighed. "Oh, I remember. It's the one in the throat," he said.